Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so I will call this special meeting, work session to order. Would we like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
You don't have to.
Okay,
It's
we're
up to
gonna skip that. Then
me. It's a
roll-
work session.
Okay.
Sarah's
Roll-
actually gonna sing for us today.
Yeah, well. Do roll call, Mayor Kratzky, I am present, Groko.
Present.
Hufall,
Present.
Dia,
Present.
Rose, absent, and Eager.
Here.
All right, we only have one item on our agenda today, and that is, just gotta find it on the agenda.
It's under police.
Under the police department, under department and committee reports and action items, we have the Tri-Line Police Department concept. Any other additions to the agenda?
No.
Okay, then I'll take a motion to approve the agenda for
So
tonight.
moved.
We have a motion from Eager. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Padilla. Any further questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carried. Then we will move forward to 9D1 on our agenda.
Logan sent over, and actually all three chiefs sent over an updated
Sure.
presentation, so it's on your table in front of you.
Got it.
So they're here this evening to give us a presentation on the Tri-Line PD concept and to answer any questions that the council may have this evening.
Okay.
Didn't we have a presentation? The presentation's on YouTube, and then most of the council members.
Half of the council was there, yes. It was back on April 20th in Winthrop, yep.
So you want to do the presentation over again?
Well, I asked them to do a kind of a shorter version, but yeah, to try to, have it available for all of you and so forth, yeah.
Is there anybody that hasn't seen it yet? We can probably speed up the presentation then if that works for you guys.
Yeah, especially if you updated anything on it, if you want to kind of hit those parts, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks everyone for being here. I'm Chief Anderson with Winthrop Police Department. Besides me, I'll let them introduce in case you guys don't know everyone.
Hi, I'm Sarah Miller. I am the Gibbon Chief of Police.
And you guys all know me. So why we're here today, this is just a regionalization concept for combining police departments between Winthrop, Gaylord, and Gibbon. I really wanted to touch base at the beginning. There's been a lot of conversation about this, which is great. We like to hear the feedback. But one point that I think is really important for us all to understand is this is a project about long-term sustainability of local law enforcement in our region. We're all seeing a hiring crisis in law enforcement. Recruiting efforts, especially for these smaller towns, is becoming harder and harder. And us chiefs really put this together because we think it's a long-term solution to some of those problems. Kind of a little motto that we've thought up here is, 3 communities, 1 department, stronger together. And you'll see throughout this and throughout the questions that we feel that all of those things are true, especially becoming stronger together. Real quickly, because we've all seen the presentation before, these are the numbers between all 3 towns. We're allocated 10 total officers between the 3 towns. Population size roughly 4,500, and our combined budgets in 2026, we're looking at a $1.765 million budget between the 3. This is our budget that we all put together. We all sat down, went through our budgets line by line, and we felt that this covers all of our expenditures between the 3 towns. We did recently get an updated estimate from the League of Minnesota Cities on workman's comp. You can see that there, that dropped a little over $10,000. Obviously, that's just an estimate, and this entire budget is taken at the high end. So I didn't change that in the bottom line total there yet until we get whatever that for sure number is. But that was an estimate from LMC. That's coming in at $1.683 million. Chiefs, do you have anything that you want to add here on some of these, or is there any questions from council on what this looks like?
I think it might be helpful to note, this is still a working document. This is not, there's still some things that they're gathering as far as information and data, and the numbers aren't complete yet at this point in time.
Yeah, we're like I said, we took everything at the high end. So there's maybe room for decreasing it, but the reality is we're not going to go above this number, but it certainly could come down after, say, year 1, year 2, and we get more data coming in that shows, we don't need as much money for whatever it is, professional services or operating supplies, whatever the line item is, we'll be very cognizant about tracking that along the way.
I would just add, the last thing that we wanted to do was bring to you a budget that was gonna end up going above that number, which is why our focus was whatever the 3 of our agencies spend are somewhere within those line items, and we wanted to make sure that it's on the high end, so that way it's not going up in the end. Our goal is that that number is gonna come down.
I think one more thing to note here is that CapEx account, we put $100,000 in there. That's because we're forming a new entity, right? Right now, all three towns, if there's a major expense that pops up, we're taking that from somewhere else in the city budget, right? We're not gonna have that base to start out, at least to what we ultimately want to get it to. And that CapEx or savings account can help cover some of those expenses. And we've had some very, very good conversations with the city administrators on how that could look moving forward as well. Any other questions?
And again, these numbers, I'm kind of repeating what the other chief said, but initially when we sat down, it wasn't like, oh, let's just do this. It's like, well, let's try to come up with a budget, put everything at max value, so to speak, and see what the number looks like, see if it's even worth even doing this. Sitting down, doing that, coming up with these numbers, everything again at the high end, it was still, a cost savings or a lower budget than, the current 2026 budget between all 3 cities. And this number here does not include any projected revenues for the year either, or next year, however you look at it.
And I guess the major components of that cost savings is redundancies, and we have currently allocated 10 full-time officers between the 3 towns. This concept would be 8 full-time officers. So that's the bulk of where the cost savings is coming into play. And that also provides a bunch of other benefits of 24-hour coverage between all 3 towns and whatnot.
And then just lastly on that, I just want to say that, like Steve said, this is a working document. We're not saying it has to be this, it has to be this, it has to be this. This is just like, hey, here's an idea. What do you guys think? What are your inputs? Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Do you want to switch this? Do you want to switch that? Like, this is just something we came up with. It doesn't have to be ultimately what it looks like at the end.
Yeah, and we'll get touch base on it later, what the Joint Powers Board looks like, but obviously we would be bringing these things to the Joint Powers Board as well for budget allocations to each town. This slide goes over, this is an updated one from the last time that you saw it. So if you look in the 3rd column there, that's our 2026 budgets. And what we're looking at here is comparing that number to this bottom line number. That's a cost savings difference in column 4 of a little over $81,000. What that transitions to in the pay structure that we have come up with for each town is looking at, for Winthrop and Gaylord, 32,000, a little over 32,000, and Gibbon about 16,000. So how we came up with the percentage of breakdown, it's literally based off of our allocations of our officers right now. Winthrop is allocated 4 full-time, same with Gaylord, and Gibbon is allocated for 2 full-time, so we thought that was a fair breakdown. There's obviously other ways to do it, whether it's population or whatever. We can have those discussions if we would like, but we just felt that this was probably the most fair way to do it, given the allocations and the most expensive portion of a budget is people's wages. So, looking over into column 5 there, what I did here was take a conservative projected budget at 3% of that 2026 budget. As we all know, like, you know, Gaylord's is in a union contract year. You know, it very well could be even more than 3% for Gaylord. But we decided that it's probably best to go on the low end here for this, just to give some representation. It very well could be higher than this. But I did it at a 3%, and that bottom line is 1.8, a little over 1.8 million is projected in 2027 for all 3 towns. So once again, comparing it to this bottom line number to that projected, we're looking at a cost savings, potential cost savings of just under $135,000. And that you can see the breakdown there in column number 6. So, does anyone have any questions on that? Chiefs, anyone add anything? This slide is projected revenues. It's pretty hard to accurately say what the revenues are going to be. It really comes down to cases and, you know, the things that are happening. Is even with police state aid, their formula is clear as mud, so it's hard to actually figure that out. But what I did here was take all of our known 2025 numbers and combine them, and then projecting that for 2027, because we know that's what we got in 2025. I don't think it's proper that we're gonna speculate on what these revenues are going to be, but I'm guessing it's gonna be somewhere in this realm.
So you're including forfeitures into the budget?
Winthrop has a little bit different structure in how they budget, like their forfeitures, admin fines, court fines. In here, we just put it all into one, and those are the numbers, so.
The forfeiture money is usually completely separate from the budget, and it rolls over year to year.
Correct.
So it's not gonna go into the budget.
Yeah, this is just projected for what could be considered revenues.
And the animal licenses, that doesn't go into the PD's fund either. That
Okay.
goes into the general budget.
Yeah, for Winthrop it does. Gibbon, it sounds like they were doing that as well.
Yeah, so we know that right now all 3 towns probably do things just a little bit differently in many different aspects, and that's gonna have to be discussion. These numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe came from the city administrators, which is how we got this slide.
Yep.
And I don't think we're using these numbers to say, oh, we're gonna lower our budget by 177 grand. I think it's just, here's the numbers without any revenue. It's a savings of whatever that final number was, 100 and some thousand. And just FYI, there's also revenue coming in everywhere. We're not saying it's gonna be this number or we're including this. It's just FYI, this is the revenue that's coming into the city one way or another.
We actually did not include revenues at all when we first started this. We added it because the question kept coming up. So that's really the only reason this slide is in there.
Well, right, because you can't guarantee your fine amount.
Exactly.
You can't guarantee the training reimbursement if your officers change, that changes, and the same with the police state aid. So
Yeah.
those 2 columns you're gonna get money in, but there's no guarantee how much.
Absolutely.
It's based off your officers. So those other columns are not accurate.
Yeah, and revenues don't normally go in a budget anyway, which we knew and we talked about, but we added this because the question kept coming up, so.
Any other questions? All right, I don't think we need to go over all of these super in depth because you heard the previous presentation. But some of the main ones that I guess we would like to point out is, you know, we're looking at a 24/7 coverage, police department, with overlapping coverages from time to time. And obviously, you know, we're looking at the cost savings there to all three communities. Chiefs, you want to point out anything noteworthy here?
I think, so we all have very different experiences, and I know that there's people at the table that also have very different experiences, whether it's life or work. And I think when we started this, like Logan and I talked about this shortly after I started 2 years ago. We just had the general conversation, like, is it something that could work out? And then the reason that we actually went full force was because it came up that we are probably possibly going to be losing people here, either in one or two or all three agencies. And we really want to make people want to come here and work. We already have a great staff, all of us do. And to not lose those people is our goal. We don't want to lose the experience we have because we all know right now, you're not going to get the same people applying, probably not in this area. So all of these benefits have to do with us trying to make this a great place for people to stay and work, to keep that experience that we currently have, because we have amazing officers and amazing experience.
And one other thing I'd like to point out, you know, I don't know what dollar amount we put on institutional knowledge, but the officers that we currently have here know our cities. And keeping them around for this project, because I know the question's been asked before, well, why do this right now? No one's hurting. Well, maybe not right this second, but it takes 1 to 2 officers to be hurting really bad. And we want to keep those officers around, keep that institutional knowledge, and keep our leadership around so that if we go to this model, we get to hit the floor running rather than start from the very bottom and learn how to crawl first, right? So we're going to be able to do that here with this project because we're going to be able to retain our staff. Some of the other benefits here, you know, Charlie, maybe you want to touch base on the construction one just briefly.
I mean, I think you guys all saw the presentation, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but I mean, obviously the Gaylord PD is lacking in areas that needs construction, such as an evidence room, this, that, and the other thing. Under this new model, we wouldn't need to add any of that stuff or spend any of that money on, you know, taking the evidence room up from where it is or adding another garage stall or anything like that. So, you know, I don't know what all that construction costs. Obviously, construction isn't cheap, but we would no longer have to do that and spend that money on, you know, building onto the PD or adding onto the PD or, you know, building a bigger evidence room.
And then I just would like to touch base one more time on the potential for departmental growth. It got brought up in our last work session. You know, some people interpret that as, well, do you expect to add on to the PD here in the near future, like adding more positions and that kind of stuff? Well, the answer is maybe, but not in the way that you would be thinking. The way that we're thinking about it is this allows us the opportunity to start having discussions. And the first one that comes to mind is discussions with our schools. We don't have any SROs in any of our schools. I think we all can agree that we want school resource officers in our schools. However, financially, it's just very hard for a school district or the police department or each of us independently to be able to do that. But if we work together on that, I don't see why we can't. And at least it opens that door to have those conversations. Additionally, on top of that, it's not necessarily adding on to this model, but it opens up more opportunities for officers for some type of tactical response. When I say Sibley County, I mean in general, all of the law enforcement in Sibley County, we haven't had a very much tactical response for many years. We want to be able to bring that here, but how do we do that? You know, I don't see why we can't open up that door now. If maybe 1, 2 of our officers maybe hopping onto a nearby SWAT team. And then we can, you know, get that resource back if we need it at any point. And I just think it's a really neat opportunity that could happen. Any other questions? Anything else, guys?
And there's also been talk about, well, you know, how's there room for opportunity or room for growth? You know, you guys already have potentially, you know, all your positions filled. Well, all the positions would have to be interviewed for, so none of them are, you know, guaranteed. We have a pretty good idea, but, you know, none of them are guaranteed. And then, let's just say if we go with the example that we presented, if, you know, Logan were to take over as chief and Sarah and I were to be sergeants, Sarah and I are both maximum 7 years before retirement, and then we're gone, and we may not even stay that long, so. There's also a K-9 position. I mean, you know, who knows, Logan just lost an officer because he, you know, got married and moved up to Duluth, so you don't know, you know, what's gonna open, what's not gonna open, and, you know, someone could get hit by a car, die tomorrow. I mean, you don't know, but there are positions that would be, someone would view it as an opportunity for advancement or some type of, not necessarily promotion, but, you know, depending on the position, doing something more than they're doing now.
Well, and to add on to that, most places that anywhere, I would say, where there's chief, sergeant, or titles such as that, most places are filled at that point. It's really, we want to groom those people that are going to be staying longer. We want to teach them and have them take those spots. We don't want to pull people in from the outside. So take those officers and teach them so they can learn how to be those sergeants when those sergeants leave or move on or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think the best word there is just mentorship. We want our sergeants to mentor them along the way. And that's not just to become that role, it's on the day-to-day operations as well. All of us independently right now, the supervisors, just can't be supervising them 24/7. This allows opportunity for 2 additional supervisory officers to give that guidance and that mentorship along the way.
It's interesting that, Chief Eichten, that you mentioned people will leave. People will leave any department. It doesn't matter. Things happen in life, so you guys are almost making it seem that nobody would leave this mythical department, that everybody's gonna be happy and nobody's gonna leave. Well, in life, people are constantly moving, their lives change, so you will lose people.
Yep.
So let's be honest about that. This is not 100% retention guaranteed deal. You're talking 7 years, that's a long time to wait. And in addition to that, just because you have sergeants doesn't mean that your department is full. It appears to me that those leadership positions are a lot easier to fill than the officer positions. So if you have those positions filled, a lot of those people see there's nowhere for me to go. I don't want to wait 7 years or whatever, so they'll move on. So some of the information that you're passing out is a little inaccurate with the statements. There's not a department around in the state that isn't losing people. There's not one. So this idea of consolidating and we're not going to lose anybody. We had a consolidation, separate but same. We had a consolidation with Arlington for our ambulance. And we had people on our ambulance crew that were upset and didn't want to consolidate. So when the consolidation happened, they left. And we never got them back. We got our ambulance back, and now we have to pay Ridgeview to contract. So you're gonna make people upset either way, whether they're current employees, they could potentially get upset and leave because they weren't in favor of this.
With all
Sure.
due respect, I don't think that we were giving misinformation. I think there's just a lot of conversation that we have all had and things that have come back to us. We know people will leave.
Mhm.
I've done this job since 2005 and a lot of people have left. And the whole point of this is because we're trying to retain people and we know it's not going to retain everybody, but we want to give opportunities and a reason for people to apply. Because let's look at me. If my full-timer leaves, the odds of me filling that spot, not likely. And this isn't just about me. Like, I'll work by myself. It is what it is. The point is we are trying to make this work so people want to stay. And people just aren't doing this job anymore. When I started, there were 200 people for one spot. And now we have -5 people applying for one spot. And I know that is sarcastic, but it's true. It's ugly. And we're talking about this because of that crisis. And we're trying to avoid it. We know nothing is predictable. We can't predict what anybody is going to do. We can't predict people are gonna stay. We can't predict when we're gonna leave.
Sure.
People leave, he just said that. We know that that will happen. But we're trying to keep that from happening, and we're trying to give incentive for people to come and join us if somebody does leave.
Well, the problem becomes if you guys were to become a department and you lose people, that's even gonna make coverage worse for cities.
You're saying we're going to lose people if we combine?
I'm
Sorry,
saying
I
that
know.
if you do combine and people leave, that's gonna make coverage for the cities that you guys are protecting worse. Because now you're gonna have, what, one person on for 3 cities?
Well, we have overlapping coverage, and the sergeants can easily fill into those roles as well. And we're looking at, I think we have 8 part-timers as well.
How many do you have?
I have 6.
I have 4.
Oh, okay, we got more than 8 then. And Charlie has a couple. So back to your first point there, Tony. I think there are some things you can control and some things you can't control as far as people leaving. We're addressing the things that we can control, and that's opportunities, pay, advancement opportunities, technology. There's a lot of things in here that all of us independently are probably not capable of doing because of budget constraints. But then on the other side of that coin is, like Charlie said, you get someone that their life takes them up north. It is what it is. We understand that those things happen, and they will. But this gives us the best opportunity to retain our officers and not walk 20 miles down the road up to Glencoe or LeSueur or New Ulm or Hutch or wherever it may be for a little bit more pay or or a different opportunity. Hopefully we can try and retain them in this model.
And I came from an agency that was short all the time, and our responsibility as supervisors is to make sure that those hours are covered, not to leave them open. Like, you cover those hours because that's what the community wants. It's about the community and making sure that coverage is there, so you cover it. Because sometimes you will be short.
Is that what happens now if we don't have a weekend coverage? Do we have an officer that works weekends?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yeah.
Most of them are filled. Every once in a while, we have some that are open. I do pick up some of them, believe it or not. Also, we have mutual aid with Winthrop, and they have mutual aid with us, so if there's a spot open, we try our best to fill it. Sometimes we offer overtime, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In that particular case, then Winthrop ends up covering down on us and vice versa, so.
Yeah, the reality is we're already doing this. We're already helping each other out constantly because that's just what we do. It's about officer safety and what's best for the community. So this is just a formalized way of doing what we're already doing with the benefits that we've gone over. So.
Well, you are already doing it to a certain extent, but I think that the sheriff's office, they should also be involved. It shouldn't be running between communities when we have a sheriff's office that if Gaylord has a call and they need assistance, it should be the sheriff's office that covers down or assists. We shouldn't be running all over between Arlington, Gaylord, Winthrop, Gibbon, because every time we take an officer from that city, then that city doesn't have coverage, whereas the sheriff's office is roaming all over the place.
Yeah, in theory, that would be the perfect scenario, right? But they also have their own responsibilities to take care of, and They're not always in Gaylord to be taking care of that, or even on the west side. You know, there's more PDs this direction than that direction, or at least staff-wise. So,
And I
yeah,
just
that would be great.
want to add to that, when we met with, Sheriff Nienaber a couple years ago, when the sheriff's office was short-staffed, sometimes they work short-staffed too. Right now, you guys are fully staffed, correct? Yeah, but if they had a staff shortage, we, got to give them some grace there too, as far as what they're able to do.
With 2 officers on and 3 communities, what's the coverage gonna be like? Do you have a plan on how that coverage is gonna work? Right now, you've got Winthrop putting 40%, Gaylord 40%, Gibbon 20%. Is that gonna be the split when there's 2 officers? They're gonna be how's that gonna work? Where are those officers gonna be?
Yeah, so I want you to try and think of it less of like a county coverage contract policing, and think of it more as we are one city now. So we will constantly, our culture will be to constantly be roaming between the 3 towns. Inherently, cops are just going to be in Gaylord more often than the other 2 communities because of call load, right? So we will be between all 3 towns. They will all have their presence known, definitely throughout the day. But a good point to that is not knowing when our officers are going to be on. A lot of the community members that want to be committing crimes, they know when we work, especially in these smaller towns. And this, maybe we can trip them up a little bit more and combat those crimes by being in and out of the communities more often and not being so predictable.
Well, we currently have, 22 hours? I already said 22 hours of policing a day with a police officer in our town. How's that gonna benefit us to have somebody over in Winthrop or Gibbon? How does that benefit our city?
Well, there's also hours that Gaylord isn't covered as well, that now will be, whether it's the officer happens to be in Winthrop at the time of the call. A 5-minute response time is better than no response time. So
There's a response time regardless.
What's that?
There's always gonna be response time. If somebody's not on, the county will take that call.
Not necessarily. If it's not an emergency, they're not gonna respond and take that.
But
that
they don't
call.
go to barking dog calls at 3 in the morning. Not even the city does that.
What's that?
The city, if they're on call, they're not even gonna go to a barking dog call. Emergency calls, the sheriff's office has to respond. They have to.
Yeah, in
It's a
theory,
law.
that would be the way it goes. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we have 22 hours a day coverage right now. And what you're proposing is 3 cities, 24 hours. There's no way there's gonna be a squad car in Gaylord 22 hours a day.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's for sure going to be the case, but you will have at times 3 squad cars that could be here from the same department handling a larger call. It could also happen in Winthrop and Gibbon as well. And like you said, that's when something like that happens, we try and rely on our partners, and hopefully they can help out with those calls as well.
So what about when you have all your cars in one city, then who takes that call?
Are you talking about like what kind of calls?
So say there's morning, you're gonna have 2 people on you, and it looks like a investigator officer.
Potentially,
So
depending on the time of day, yeah.
last week in Gaylord, I was listening to the radio. They had a medical, followed by a physical domestic with an arrest, followed by somebody that jumped out of a car. So we had 2 officers on that were dealing with that. If you have those 2 officers on and they're here in Gaylord, or it's in Winthrop, who's handling those calls then?
Yeah, that's where you gotta triage the situation, right? You go
When
to
you're on
the
a
one
domestic, you
that
can't
you're
triage.
the most important one, and then we rely on it's the same thing that we're doing now, that same situation, if that same thing happened here in Gaylord, there's only 1 officer on, maybe 2, depending on the time of day, you still can't cover it all, so we rely on our partners. It's the same
Who's the
thing as-
partners that you're relying on when you have 3 cities? Who's the partners?
The sheriff's office, Arlington,
The
there's a
sheriff's
lot of, we all work together.
Have
you
you,
know?
have you talked to the sheriff's office about this plan?
No.
And why would you not talk to the sheriff's office when they are the biggest law enforcement agency in the county?
Respectfully, I think it's mainly because it's involving the 3 towns. You guys as council members make these decisions. It's not the sheriff's office that makes these decisions for you guys.
But they will be definitely affected by the decisions that are made if the cities were to go to that model. Because if there's 2 officers over in Gibbon and then Winthrop and Gaylord are both not covered, they're gonna have to respond to anything else that
No
happens.
differently than they're affected right now. If I don't have anybody on, maybe will go take the call, maybe won't. And there definitely are some where they have to go and take the call because one of us aren't on. If somebody's not on in Winthrop, if somebody's not on in Gaylord, right now that's already happening. And I don't think that any of us expect them to go take our calls, especially if they're not emergencies. I know I can speak for myself saying how much I appreciate if they do, because I can't cover all of the hours in my town. I mean, most agencies have a chief, another titled something, whether it's lieutenant, a captain, a sergeant, or 2 sergeants, many more officers than I have. I am currently doing probably 5 people's jobs. Taking calls takes away from everything else that I personally have to do as a chief, and it is exhausting, and I know it's not just me. I'm just speaking for myself at the
And I understand that completely, but your town is so small that most towns your size are usually incorporated into a sheriff's office. But your town finds it so important to have a police department that they continue to have that service. Do you see what I'm saying there?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we wanted to give away our police department and all these resources that we have, why wouldn't we just contract with the
Because
county?
they would have to hire, and the odds of them being able to hire enough to cover all of these contract hours is
I'm not talking about all you guys, I'm talking about Gaylord specifically. What
Right,
Winthrop and
yeah.
Gibbon do, it's their business. But I'm talking about Gaylord. Why wouldn't,
That's what
we
I
could
mean.
save a ton of money by going with the sheriff's office, a ton.
It depends what you want, you know, and I'm not saying, I have all the answers, but these guys aren't gonna do city ordinances. They're not, they don't do them now, they won't do them, they don't have to do them, they don't wanna do them, nobody wants to do them.
And nobody
And
wants
I
to do
mean,
them,
the
but
city
these
of Green
contracts.
Isle is actually currently talking with Arlington right now as is about.
It's
so
interesting
there's-
you brought that up.
I hope that you understand that, and I think you do, you know, because you work for a town as well. Like, it's just a different type of policing. There, as a county deputy, you've worked as a county deputy, so have I. Your number one goal is not to be sitting in a town throughout your day. You want to be roaming the county doing deputy things. And you just get a different kind of service. This service with having a local police department, which is why it's the sustainability of local law enforcement in our region, provides that.
Well, if you look at it from that standpoint, Carver County, the majority of their cities are contracted cities. And in each one of those, they have a representative that is speaking on behalf of the sheriff's office. So I would say that those people are handling issues with the city. There's usually a person that actually meets with the city administrator on a pretty regular basis to discuss issues that they're having. So,
And
sheriff's
those same
office-
towns in Carver County also are finding ways to get out of that county coverage. So.
Because they want their own
Because they
police
don't
department.
like they're not getting the service that they expected, I guess. And it's no fault to the sheriff's office themselves. Like I said, it's just a different type of policing, and it's not their forte. Our forte is that we want to be in the town taking care of all of the things that you guys want as city council members.
I think that you're
Ordinances
very
are a
much
huge
so
one.
generalizing what the
What's that?
sheriff's office would do.
I didn't hear what
I
you
think you're very much so generalizing your opinion about what the sheriff's office would do.
All I can do is go off of my experience in 18 years in a county. I know one person that wanted to stay in the community that they were working in, and not one of the other ones wanted to stay. They wanted to get out of that community as fast as they could and work the full county, because they went to a sheriff's office to work the full county. They didn't go to work in a town.
Well,
And I can only speak off of my experience.
same thing could be said if you want to consolidate half the county into a police department. That's basically like a sheriff's office.
I don't know that arguing about this is.
Yeah.
something
Right,
that we
I was
should
kind of
do at
hoping that
this
you guys
point.
were done so that the council could talk about issues to figure out what we're gonna do. So I don't know, are you you guys still have more to cover? or-
Oh, it sounded like you had the question, so are you done?
No, yeah, I'm done.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from people? Do we want to go over the schedule?
I just want to reiterate, a lot of things that Tony said are some of the concerns I've had, and they're also concerns that I've heard from citizens. So it's not, but you guys understand, that's just not us sitting here questioning this. I've been talked to by citizens that have the same concerns. And that's why this is coming up. It's not, I was open to listening to this idea, still am open to listen to it, but I've gotten a lot of feedback since it started from a community, and that's, a lot of the questions that he's posing are things that have been posed to me as well, as how is this really gonna work? And, yeah, I've got concerns with it as well, to be honest with you. And so there are things that we do need to discuss as a group to try and figure out if this is a benefit to the city or not.
Scott, what questions specifically do you have that haven't been brought up yet?
Pretty much what Tony's asked as far as the coverage, where are people gonna be, what's the savings to the budget? How often are the officers gonna be out on the, they're gonna be in between the communities, so how often are they gonna be making stops out on the highway, and then they're not in town when they're out there on the road, because now they're having fun that, hey, I'm traveling from Gaylord to Gibbon, I can stop cars on the way there. Those are things that I'm hearing from community members that there's concerns about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality, I think, just to be direct, like, if we see violations along the way, we're gonna address them. That's going, we're proactive policing, all of our officers are.
And that's a concern with people, that now you're out on the highway on a traffic stop for speed, and there's no one in town patrolling when there should be. And that's what I'm getting from the citizens that I've talked to, is a big concern.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the same thing could be said, though, even in town. You're pull someone over for speed in town.
Right.
You're handling that call. So I get the concern. And I think that this is definitely a work in progress. Like I said, we're going to be able to tackle those things head on, hear all the feedback from you guys right away, because we don't have to field train. We don't have to go through all of those nitty gritty initial steps that you would if you were starting from brand new.
It's the perception of it, though, and the city cops out on the highway, and a citizen sees that and wondering, why are they out there and they're not in town, versus you have somebody pull over in town. You're working in town, and that's what they want to see, not out on the highway. And that's where the concern's coming from.
Yeah.
My personal opinion on that, Scott, is that, like I said at the beginning, this isn't, to me, anything that's set in stone. This is, hey, this is an idea.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exactly as it is. And I guess my personal opinion would be, if the council's like, no, we don't want it. If we go to this, we don't want our officers making stops on the highway. We only want our officers making stops in town. I think that's, to me, my personal opinion is, I would agree with you on that. I think that's fair. Maybe I'm in the minority, but like, if I was, the chief, of this, or if I was on the city council, I would say the same thing. Like, no, we don't want our officers playing deputy. We want them in the cities. You want to make a traffic stop? Make a traffic stop in the city. That's my opinion.
Yep. And I'm bringing this stuff up just for your guys' information too, so that you guys understand the feedback that we're getting from citizens in
Sure.
town here.
We've actually talked a ton about it as well, and we've also talked about the schedule. Actually, today, we talked a lot about the schedule, and how we can possibly man more hours. And then just knowing that all of you councils would have the ability to say, okay, let's talk about this. Is there something different we can do? Because we know that's a concern, and we also have talked a ton about it.
And I guess that's one thing that I've thought about since we've last met is like, what, I know the schedule, but what will that coverage look like? I know, like, I can only speak for Gaylord, but our officers, that monitor city ordinance and nuisance complaints, those are, like, what would that look like? Would there be certain,
Well, we talked about that, if I could answer that one. We
Yeah.
talked about that earlier today, and my recommendation was that everybody does city ordinances. Well, okay, how's the Gaylord officer gonna do city ordinances in Winthrop or Gibbon? And my suggestion was, well, if we retain all of our current employees, the Gaylord officers continue to do the ordinances in the city of Gaylord, because they're familiar with them and they know how to do them, and same with the other towns. And everybody's gotta do them, not just one person. That would be impossible. Everybody's gotta do them.
And then cross-training from that point forward, so that the current Gaylord officers are teaching the Winthrop and Gibbon officers the nuances of Gaylord, right? And same thing for all the other ones. And I think over time, all of us will be proficient at those city ordinances. I know that Counselor Layton had a question about city ordinances and how that would be addressed. Winthrop has taken a pretty innovative stance with ordinances in the last couple years, and we just rolled out a new program where you can log in through like our website, and there's drop-down menus of like all of our main city ordinances that we use on a regular basis, right? You type in the person's name, address, drop-down menu, whatever, tall grass, explain whatever the violation is. It pops up with the actual language from the ordinance. You hit create document, it creates a warning letter or a citation, admin citation, depending on where you're at in the process. You print it, you send it out. It really expedites the process and makes us more effective and efficient in the long run. We can hit more of the problem houses and try and affect the changes as best as we can. And so that would be something that would be afforded to Gaylord and Gibbon as well. It would be very easy to just add those ordinances in there, and all the officers have access to it.
I hit ordinances really heavy in my town, like I spend most of my time doing that when I can. I've talked to him about this before, which is why I know about the program, just trying to figure out how we can do it better, because it takes so much time, and that is definitely something that everybody could get advantage of, for sure.
Any other questions?
Now, like Karen was just saying, we don't have 22 hours of coverage every single day of the week, 7 days a week, all the time. I mean, people call in sick, people take vacations, you know, hodgepodge, work some hours
beyond
here,
that,
work some hours there.
It's beyond that. We have not been fully staffed in Gaylord for 5 to 6 years. I know you guys don't see it because Charlie does an amazing job of putting shoelaces and bubble gum together to staff things, but we don't. We do not have 22 hours a day of coverage. Even if all of our full-time guys are working, there are weekends where guys get off, they go to training, et cetera, and I cannot do a day and a night shift. We have one other part-timer that can work maybe 4 hours on a weekend, maybe one shift every other weekend. We haven't had 22 hours a day of coverage here
Well,
for a long time.
to speak to that point, it's gonna be the same problem you're gonna have if you consolidate it. People are gonna get sick, people are gonna get vacation, people are gonna go to schools. But to speak specifically to the PD and coverage on the weekend, when Gaylord got the 4th officer, the way that it was sold, and I know, because I was the chief at the time here, was that officer that got hired was gonna work Wednesday through Sunday. And then the intent was that every few months, the night officers would all rotate through that. So that's something that has changed within recent years, and that position's nowhere there. Sure.
Did council approve that change?
What change? I didn't do that change.
I
So-
didn't say you did. I said, did council approve that change?
No.
Yes, they did.
They approved the schedule change?
They approved that change. You came back to council, council approved that change.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't remember that happening. I've been on the council since I left here. So, but regardless, the coverage that we have now is far more than what we get with a consolidated police department, period. And we talk about proactive police department, you're right. Proactive is key. And right now, whether it's 22 or 19, whatever hours it is, I see a squad car driving around town all the time. And you know what that stops? That stops crimes from happening. Now, I can tell you personally, from experience, that when you don't have all those cars on the street, that crime increases. I've had an increase in burglaries. I've had an increase in theft from vehicles. Guns are getting stolen from cars that people are leaving in them. Businesses are having broken windows. All these things that didn't happen when we were fully staffed. Okay, so proactive policing is extremely important for the cops to be seen out there, in addition to community policing, getting out there and hosting events so people will talk to you. Community policing is something that we've really lost here recently that we need to be having events going on so people feel free hosting events. We used to host landlord events where landlords could come in, we'd host them, and we'd tell them, hey, you're gonna get somebody that you have questions about. You can come to the PD, you can ask questions about that person. We'll give you whatever information we can so that your house doesn't get destroyed by somebody that has already destroyed 2 other houses in town. Those are all benefits of community policing and engaging. So proactive policing, community policing, extremely important. And this plan cuts down on our proactive policing. And as a council member, I answer to the residents. I am responsible. I've heard numerous police officers that live in town completely against this. I've talked to numerous residents in town that are against it. They've gone so far as to say that if the council were to vote in favor of this, that they will start a petition to keep the police department. Along those lines, we had a charter handbook when I first got here, and the handbook said that we must have a police department. So probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, there was an attempt by the council to get rid of the police department, and they had a vote, right? And the city said, we want to keep our police department. If a city like Minneapolis, their council, they put that same thing. They didn't want their police department. They wanted to get rid of it. And you know what? The citizens said no.
Just a quick follow-up on that, Tony. You said in your charter is you have to have a police department?
Yep, it was in our old charter handbook.
Okay. Why did you ask to go out for a sheriff's office bid then at the last work session if that's the case?
Because my scenario is there's no difference between consolidating and then having a sheriff's office. They're the same. So if the council's concerned about saving money, dollar for dollar, compare the bids. Compare the bids. Guarantee you the sheriff's office will be cheaper.
Yeah, but like I said at the beginning, this is not a project about cost savings, though, and there are.
That's
we
what
went
you're
over
selling.
We went over the benefits of what this project actually has.
The
so-
biggest thing that you're selling is cost savings.
No.
It's retention, it's the quality of the staff. That might be your opinion, but I don't know if that's everyone's opinion here, and that's certainly not our opinion. What difference does $30,000 make to the city's budget in terms of how many million is your budget?
Well, as a taxpayer,
How many
that does
million is
make,
your
that
budget?
does make a difference.
How many million is your budget?
It's over 5 million. So your 30,000 is nothing?
I'm just saying, $30,000, that's one of the points up there. One.
So the key is retention. That's what you guys are,
There's a number of benefits. I think that's what we're trying to get across, is there's a number of
Okay.
benefits.
all right,
I think my opinion on the matter is to me, the goal here is to keep police departments and not lose our department and go to something else such as what other option is there, county coverage.
but that's what you're trying to do, is take away the police department.
I don't see it that way.
You don't, but the residents do.
Sure.
Because we have a police department. So for example, Broughton, they got rid of their PD, but you know what? They wanted a PD, because they want control of it. They brought it back. Cost them a lot of money. You talked about Green Isle. Do you know that Arlington and Green Isle used to be together for a point in time? And you know what happened? The Arlington got tired of the officers running up and down the highway, stopping cars, and there was no value, so they pulled out. What happened to Green Island PD after that? They lost their people, they lost their car. We have a significant amount of stuff. Right now, we have everything we need to fill the police department, and you're asking us to consolidate all of our stuff.
Yeah, we also, I think all the communities have a lot of assets that they can bring to the table to make this a success, so.
Well, and then in addition to that, Gibbon, which is 700 people, 800, whatever it is, they're gonna get the same amount of votes that we are, which is the biggest city. So for example, all of a sudden, Winthrop and Gibbon, who are constantly together, lockstep with what they do, now all of a sudden they decide that they wanna add additional people. So you guys say, yeah, we want more people, and Gaylord's like, no, because our taxes are high enough, we don't wanna pay that extra. What happens when Gaylord says no and they're vetoed because you guys got a 4-2 vote over Gaylord?
Yeah, that's the Joint Powers Board's responsibility, right, to make those decisions.
Correct.
And that's why it's a rotating mayor system as well as the president, so that there's representation from all three towns. And I think it's probably the fairest way to do it across the board.
But so Gibbon, which is a third the size, gets the same votes that the other two cities get.
Yeah, in this, what we've put together so far when we've met with the city administrators and the chiefs, that's the first proposal. We're open to other ideas. We're not saying this is the way that it has to be. Do you have any suggestions?
No, I'm looking at your plan, what you guys propose, so.
Oh, but do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I would say that Gaylord would get more votes than the other cities, so that way, if we have concerns that we're not shot down by two cities that put together and go against everything that we want. Obviously, the first thing would be to get the same amount of coverage and hours that we have now. And
What
obviously
specifically would you say that the number should be?
you know what, you're asking me on the spot. How long did you have to plan this?
We've started a couple months.
So give me a couple months and I could probably.
Well,
give
you
you
brought
that
it up,
answer.
so I was just curious if you thought of something in the.
No, I brought it up because
We've
it's
known about this
concerning.
meeting for over a month, so I was wondering if you thought, I thought it was a fair question.
We good?
You guys, you want to bring it back for discussion?
No, I have a bunch of stuff that I'd just like to address with the council.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Bring it back to the council for discussion. I did hear back from the sheriff's offices about your question as far as the hourly amount that they gave me a number of $68 an hour, the sheriff did.
$68 an hour.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Does anyone have any questions on the timeline? I updated it a little bit here. We're obviously approaching June now. The city administrators and the chiefs have been meeting over the last month or so on a weekly basis. And one of our main things is getting that language together for the joint powers agreement for council reviews. We would like at the June meeting to have that for you guys to review it, give some suggestions or critiques that you would like to see changes with. And then we can come back, work as the committee between the chiefs and the administrators, make those revisions, bring it back to you in July, and hopefully in that July, August range that we'll looking for approvals from the councils, one way or the other, and if so, if it goes through, we'd start that consolidation work, and then also establishing that joint powers board, however that may look, and from that point forward, that joint powers board is going to have a lot of work to do, approving employee handbook, policies, procedures, all of those different things. So, and then we're looking for January 2027 implementation of this project. Any questions on that?
I just want to make one final point. Karen, kind of you brought up about Charlie doing the job he's doing. I hear that from citizens about every officer in the Gaylord Police Department, how happy they are with the police department we have and the job that everybody does. And that's a concern too, that they're afraid we're gonna lose that. So kudos to you guys for that, and that is a concern, because you guys are doing a great job, so.
I guess I have one last thing. Thank you, appreciate that. One last thing I'd like to add is, again, this, to me, my personal feelings here, I don't speak for the group. To me, this is an idea, right? No, along the way, it wasn't, hey, we have to do this, we're demanding we do this. If you think the sky's blue and I think the sky's gray, doesn't mean we can't be friends anymore. Ultimately, if you guys don't think it's gonna work, you don't think it's a good idea, I mean, that's your opinion, that's why you guys are in the elected positions you're in. I know, like, yeah, it would be, a little frustrating, but for me, it's not like I'm not gonna talk to you anymore or anything, It's just an idea, like, hey, we're trying to do something together here, we're trying to preserve the police departments here. Here's an idea, what do you guys think?
And I appreciate that. And we've been talking so much lately about what, I mean, the cost of doing city business is getting more and more expensive, and us small towns are struggling. And we've been talking about what can we share. And my hope is no matter what happens with this, we have new ideas of what we can do to make all of our jobs easier, all of our work easier. So I have an open mind about that. What can we do to, even if this concept doesn't work for us, but maybe there's something else. And I'm just really open to that. And because like I said, I mean, we talk about regional consolidation of resources all the time with EMS services especially. And I just think that's going to be the future, whether it's now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So it's good to start thinking about it.
Thank you. That's all we have for you guys, unless you have any other questions.
Well, thank you for your time, thank you for listening, and, yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience before we talk about it as a council? Okay.
No,
No, this is just a work session, so it's,
yeah.
So, we ready?
yeah.
Okay, so I just kind of looked at some things, my spare time to, just so people have an idea. I've talked to a lot of chiefs, I've talked to a lot of cops that live in this community, and I've talked to a lot of residents of this community. And all of them are quite shocked. I guess if you have a really small town like Gibbon, I can understand how that would get eaten up. And I applaud her for working the way that she is. But again, I'm seeing towns that are trying to get their police departments back. Chief Anderson brought up cities inside of Carver that aren't happy. And it's an astronomical cost to start up a PD once you've given it away. So from control, you're looking over, you know, the coverage that we have right now. I can't tell you an hour amount. If the sheriff's rate, if this did come down to money, I just did some quick math, and I'm not an accountant, I'm a cop. It's about $500,000 to have the sheriff's office come here. So hopefully this isn't a cost-saving measure, because that's significantly cheaper than what we would pay, or we're paying the current police department. You also, again, my concern is with the board having just 2 votes, and now we have the same amount of votes that Gibbon has, as well as Winthrop. And then you're looking at, again, Broughton, they brought their PD back. Arlington, Green Isle was another example of how once Green Isle lost their department, it was over for them. The 22 hours a day coverage. We have that, and I can't tell you, I've hit on it with proactive policing and what I've seen. And when crimes will happen when people don't see that car on a regular basis. Even those traffic stops in town are so important, because you're seeing what's in your community. If we're seeing a lot of meth, if we're seeing cocaine, if we're seeing drugs in cars, then we know that's in our community, and we have to figure out how to deal with it. And right now, we have a group of police officers that knows our town, and hopefully they have a good clue on what the issues are. I gave up an example of, right now, our city has, most of the time, I can't say every day, 2 people on per day. Winthrop has 2 people on, and Gibbon has 1. So that's 5. Now, if you're gonna cut that down to 2, 1 chief and 1 officer, the amount of things that they're gonna be able to do is far less. And again, we're gonna be relying far more on the sheriff's office to assist down. Last week was a perfect example. They had a domestic, which was in custody arrest, and then they had somebody jumped out of a car. Those are all things that, if your town is the one that the police officers aren't in, the other 2 are uncovered. We talked a lot about their sergeants and them being able to pick when they want to work, or they could work days when there's already the chief working, or they could cover down on shifts. Really, if they're gonna have sergeants, they should be working with another officer at night, but that's just a critique on their plan. There's issues if the afternoon car takes off, the next one's not in until 1900, so then they're gonna be shifting people around, and as I could tell you, as a guy who's been doing a lot of shifting around between overnights and days lately, that is an absolute killer. It is no fun getting flex like that going between the two. Right now, we own all of our equipment. We have 2 squads, a truck, we have body-worn cameras, we have squad radar, squad cameras, cages, computers, just to name a few of those things. And then if we do a consolidation, all that stuff becomes part of that joint powers. And then if there's a problem and we don't like what we have, or for whatever reason we want to leave, I was informed that there's going to be an expense to trying to get out of this. Again, no, looking at the expenses, I did that. I looked at that versus police department budget. And one of the things that I didn't see in there is like building costs. There's building costs for our PD right now that I didn't see in there. Maintenance of that building, and there's gonna be 3 of them, or is there gonna be just one? And it's gonna be in Winthrop, and building power, all those things. How about attorney's fees? I didn't see that. You're looking at criminal and civil. Those are big expenses, especially the criminal fees, the health insurance, HSA. The pay is above average from what I've heard. I actually printed off League of Minnesota Cities study, which shows those size cities and what the wages would be. And I can pass that out to all you guys. I have it in my packet here, sorry. But substantially above what the League of Minnesota Cities is. They reference Le Sueur a lot, and just so you guys know, Le Sueur probably pays more than any other department around, and they have lost officers, and they've lost 2 sergeants recently. So it is nice in theory, but it's not a guarantee. So for example, the average police chief for a town this size is making about $54.60, and that's about $113,000. And their proposals are for $130,000. Their police sergeants that they want to pay $125,000, so $60.09 are averaging $43.70, so that's about $17 difference. And their officers, the average for the officers is $40.30, and I didn't see any sort of estimate for police officers and what they want to pay those. I just heard the other ones in the form of rumors. You can just pass those on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, me too. Okay, so again, the Logan, Chief Anderson was correct. Over 70% of your budget is pay, and so when you increase the budget by that much for their pay, I find it hard to believe that the budget is close to real. Some of the other issues is part-time help doing all of the redaction. I have 2 people that do it, and when you start getting axon redactions, when you start getting into data practice and stuff and then coding all the incidents, this takes hours to do all these things. And so if they ever were to get an axon redaction, it takes about 8 hours for about 40 minutes of video, because you have to redact everything out of it and all the voices for the people that are not requesting information. Operating supplies are low, training supplies are low, equipment parts, squad costs with additional wear and tear for all the miles, investigations, what are they gonna get, insurance for the vehicles, emergency services, how about that? Our police chief is also the emergency manager, so that's something that's gonna be an additional expense for our city, because we'd have to take that over. Computer repair, building repair, startup costs for the new PD. You're gonna have to get everything from shoulder patches, badges, the cars are gonna have to be marked. These are all costs that are substantial. Radar costs, PBT costs, body camera. Right now, the storage for the body camera is incredibly expensive. Overtime costs for unfilled shifts or part-time employees to cover that. Overtime for holidays, I saw that they had one for that. And then the other thing is, if one of the cities is doing all the admin, whether it's healthcare, payroll, whatever it is for those employees, we have that already factored in for our full-time staff, but now you're giving additional responsibilities to somebody else that's not within the police department, so how is that gonna affect it? Are they gonna request money? Again, the wages that were referenced, the sewers, incredibly high, and they've lost several officers and 2 sergeants as of late. Opportunities, again, they talked about that for promotion to be filled. Again, that's 2 sergeants' positions, and if everything pans out the way that they assume it will, and the chiefs become sergeants, then there's really not much chance for any mobility. The only thing that they'd be able to do is patrol more city. Emergency manager, we hit on it. Issues. So our city council has really bent over backwards to accommodate our police department. Some of the things that we've done recently are pay increase. We've removed mileage requirements from the PD to their residents. We've removed on-call time. And it's difficult to understand why our police department, our police chief is standing up here wanting to eliminate our police department and consolidate with another. Winthrop can benefit. Their budget is astronomical for a town of 1,400. Gibbon can benefit because staffing for a city of 790 is extremely hard, just like she said. If the cities want to continue to help each other out on the weekends, like Chief Anderson was saying, I get it. I've seen it happen, and it's a great idea when one of the cities doesn't have service and you don't want to rely on the sheriff's office. The other thing is the PDs need to get assistance from the sheriff's office. Now, I've heard that there's times when the PD isn't very receptive to the sheriff's office, and that's a relationship issue that needs to be built upon so that we can all work together. And I would hope that the chiefs and the sheriff could resolve this issue versus a city council having to get involved in it. But the sheriff's office, I think, wants a bigger role. They're willing to help out. And they have a pretty decent staff right now. They're good people. The sheriff is very, very outgoing. He's a great community member. He gives up a lot of his time within the community. So I think that if the sheriff was reached out to, it is disappointing that the sheriff's office wasn't even talked to about this proposal. Again, the local law enforcement that live in the town, they don't think it's a good idea. I've spoken to several sheriff's deputies that have expressed concerns with the plan. And then again, residents that I've talked to are not happy. So keep in mind, our PD has all aspects. We, as a council, have all aspects of control from blight, pay, compensation, equipment, hours, and coverage. We get to keep our emergency management. And, you know, if this is something that Winthrop and Gibbon think is a great idea, I would applaud them and tell them to make this plan work and see how much it really costs. And, you know, reevaluate in a few years. But for right now, I think with the timeline that is being presented, it's way, way too fast. And I don't think that you could realistically get an idea of what this is going to cost. And then moving forward in the future, I don't think that you realistically understand the needs that are going to appear, because right now, for example, Gaylord can handle their child protection and they can handle their adult protection. But if you start to get to a point where you got 3 departments, you're going to have a dedicated investigator that handles all those cases, because they do come rolling in. And so now you're talking about adding people. Adding an SRO is extremely expensive. Love the idea, but it's extremely expensive, and it's going to cost the taxpayers more in the end. So I guess I would ask the council to speak to the residents and see what they're saying or what their feelings are, because I think that when you start talking about not having that car in town like it is now, it's a big deal to people. So, thanks for listening.
Yeah, I would like to say that I've had some residents also express that they felt like Gaylord would lose coverage, that officers will be in other towns instead of being here, that Gaylord really is the hub, and it should continue to be the hub of this operation, and the city is the county seat. I'd like to know how the sheriff's department does feel about it, if they've got some input. I too was kind of surprised that they haven't been contacted at all. So, and then it was about losing control, that the citizens feel like then we as a city lose control over what is going on. I think it'd be interesting, I mean, there's no public input. You know, I'd like to know what the public thinks. I know maybe some people obviously have heard, maybe because of their positions, maybe, but I think in general, the public has no idea what we're talking about. And ultimately, they should have a lot of input into what we're doing. They should be well-informed and then be able to give us their input. It shouldn't just be us, I don't feel, that get to decide on how we want our police department to be.
I agree. We work for the citizens of this town, and that's why the ones that I've talked to brought up the points that I've heard from them. So some of the same things you've heard.
But they also haven't really been informed.
No.
So they don't know all of the very positive points of it either. You know, and maybe there's some kind of a combination of things that can be done. I don't know. I think it's quick to move through without getting some input from our citizens.
Agree. And, I mean, I don't know how to solicit that. It seems like if we have, when we host events where we ask the citizens to come, there's not a lot of people that show up. It's almost as if it would have to be a vote of some sort with information provided beforehand, because I don't know how you get that word out to everybody.
Agreed.
And again, Steve, if you could, I don't know if Joe knows, but we used to have a little handbook for the charter, and that's where I saw that. I don't know where that would be now.
Yeah, there is a segment in a city charter that addresses the police department. Yes.
So then, if that's the case, then wouldn't that have to go to a vote before the?
Yes.
So, I mean, really what we're doing right now is for naught, because we don't know what the citizens want. And you know, everybody, I think, needs to be involved. Let the citizens speak. If they don't want it, they want to continue to keep their own PD, then there's nothing to discuss anymore. But I would say that if a vote did happen, that I think that the sheriff's office really needs a voice in this. I mean, I don't know. They have to have the opportunity to express their concerns. So, with that being said, with this whole charter, where does that put us at? If it has to be a vote,
Well, the charter, any kind of change to the city charter triggers a public hearing, and so it's kind of similar to like an ordinance. You have to go through that process. The one probably difference between an ordinance and a charter, if you make an amendment to it, you actually have to advertise it for 3 months in the paper after you approve it, before it becomes effective. Whereas an ordinance, once it's in the paper, it's advertised, it becomes effective immediately.
sure. As far as the council, does the council have to vote all in favor of that charter change?
I think it's a 4/5 vote, so practically, yes. I guess for me, this evening, and this has been kind of where you've been at, is do you believe this is where public safety in general is going? Are we looking at consolidations within our public safety services, not just police, fire, and ambulance, but, you know, police is on the table here this evening. But ultimately, do you feel that that might be the direction it's going? And if you do, then it leads to the next question, is this the time? Do you feel that this is the timing is right at this point in time? Or is there something down the road? You know, that's the big questions I think are, do you think this is where it's going? And if you do, do you feel that the timing is correct or timing is right at this point? Those I think are the big questions to answer first. I think all the points here have been brought up, and this is great, actually. I'm glad to hear that you guys have been out and you've heard some comments from the public, because so often some of these things just get under the radar, and you're making assumptions on some of your decisions, and you're doing the best you can with what you believe is best for the community. But this is great that you do have some, you know, and some of the people might, you know, they have bits and pieces of the information here, and so hopefully some of this will get out more as time goes on, and we'll maybe hear some more. And there are avenues, if you so choose, that you could try to gauge more of the public, input. You know, if we want to try to do a survey or something like that, or there's online surveys that we could do and things like that. We certainly have our own newsletter. We could do something, putting it out through the utility bill or things like that. Some of those things, as you can appreciate, they get a small percentage of responses. The public meetings, the open meetings, I agree, can be very limited as far as the public participation in those things. I've not had too much success with those. The best success I've had is going to the people, going to a neighborhood. If we're going to, say we're doing a project in a neighborhood, go to them. Don't ask them to come to you, because they're just not going to have time or interest. They're not going to make the time. So you got to go to them a lot of times.
And I think, that's a great approach. The problem being, there's a lot of information there. And so to give them the correct amount of information to them, for them to be knowledgeable without getting a presentation, I feel is pretty difficult.
Right.
So then they're only going to say what they think based on their assumption of how things go. I don't know how to get the word out correctly either.
It's very challenging. It's a broad subject here.
It's no different than us when this first came up. It's say, yeah, let's listen to the ideas, and it's taken, month and a half, 2 months to get to this point of hearing information and talking to a few people and stuff. So you're exactly right. How do you get that out to the citizens and that they understand the pros and the cons of it?
I think the city, my assumption, that the citizens are pretty protective of what we have. So the whole emergency services ambulance thing, that was a big undertaking that ended up failing, not due to what we wanted, but, and that if now the police department too, I think that they just aren't gonna wanna see anything but their own. I might be wrong.
And then I think we as a council need, whatever we decide to do. I mean, we did a big bump in salaries 2 years ago, whenever it was, and we have to talk about what we can afford in the foreseeable future too. And I'm not trying to, I'm just saying, I think we have to be a little bit of a devil's advocate to it as far as what we have now and wanting to keep it, but what are we willing to invest in that?
Right, agreed.
If that's the decision.
Just like Tony has pointed out, I think that we've done a lot to be able to give the PD or different departments whatever they feel they need. We try our best to be able to approve those things and give that to them. So there is a lot of that that's invested too. But yeah, how much can we continue to go forward? As you said, our budgets continually, funding gets cut, things have to change, and where are we gonna make those cuts then? I don't know where we go forward. I don't know how to move on it.
Right, and it, you know, the thing is, the planned timeline, I don't think is attainable at all to accomplish what we need to do. And then, with that being said, we still have our staff involved in all these things, trying to work towards this plan that I don't think can reach that timeline. So, if it's 3 months to get it past the city charter, then, was that June, July, August, and the budget year is what, September it needs to be in?
Yeah, it's a tight schedule. It's very challenging. I mean, it's a challenging schedule. You have to definitely stay on task and keep moving forward. Again, as you know, this all started with the April 20th joint meeting with the 3 city councils, and it was that group that had decided. Unfortunately, only 3 of you were there at that night, and so that's why we're here tonight. It's taken this, part of this reason that we're first meeting now is it's taken that long to get the whole council
Yeah.
together. So, and we wanted to do this during a work session to have a good discussion about it. So no decision will be made tonight. So if you want this to come back to a regular meeting, we have one next week. We could have a little bit further discussion as far as what might be the next steps, maybe give ourselves a little chance to reflect on tonight and bring it back for further discussion at the next week's meeting. As far, because if the intent of the council is to go forward with this, we need to kind of keep on track here, because this is a very involved process. But if it's not, it wouldn't be fair to kind of hold out on the other 2 communities and not give them, tell them where we're at. So I think it's important that we probably bring this back as soon as next week. I know Scott will be at the meeting.
I'm gonna be on vacation next week. But just the thought of, making this decision again when I don't know that we have a good, we don't have a good feeling from the residents of our city where they actually feel about the PD. And again, the feedback I'm getting is probably because I'm a cop. A lot of people are against it, so I don't know that coming back next week and having this come before the council is enough time, I think.
Well, I guess my thought was that we would try to come together in some form of action to try to gauge the public interest in this topic. Maybe it's trying to hold an open house and bring them in. And I think based on what you're saying, a lot of you shared this evening, that this is a very important topic to the community. And maybe we would have a decent turnout for something like that. We could hold it at a different location where we can hold more people and so forth, and invite the chiefs in to try to answer any questions and kind of give an overview of what's being proposed. We can come up with an agenda later, and maybe since you're gone next week, Scott's gone, maybe wait till the following meeting, I don't know. I mean, again, this is in a very aggressive schedule, and I don't like to put this off too far, because people are working on this, staff are working on this.
And that's to my point. I think that, with this timeline, it's unrealistic from my standpoint. If this is something that Winthrop and Gibbon want to move forward with, to see what the costs are, let them do it. And then that'll give us time to figure out if our community is interested in it, and they can show how great this is working, how this plan is everything that they said it was going to be, that there's a cost savings, then there'd be no reason to not engage, or at least give our residents, look, it's working here, look at how these guys are doing it. But just with where we're at right now, I think that the timeline's too aggressive and it needs to be thought out more.
And again, that would be the idea of bringing it back to a regular meeting, because we're not going to make a decision here.
Sure.
And so you'd have to bring it back to a meeting, and that's certainly one option, that you guys could decide just simply to hold off at this point in time. Or you could decide some other sort of action. But I think it's important that we get it back to a regular meeting then, now that you've had this work session, and then decide how you'd like to move forward or not move forward.
Music Under the Oak starts here, maybe that's a good opportunity to start reaching out.
Yeah.
It usually draws, if we're down there, nights you're down there, just, or even getting something, I don't know.
Or get
Just thinking
kind
out
of
loud, can we get
Like
something?
simple
informa-
survey or something.
Something, yeah. I
Yes.
mean,
Some kind of a handout?
The only problem with Music Under the Oaks is a lot of times we have council meetings, so.
I
So
know.
it kind of conflicts with our schedule.
Little
So,
booth at Egg Days.
But then now we are
Never
really
there.
pushing out,
Yeah.
and that timeline for
Yeah.
sure is not.
Then you
gonna
know
work,
you're not
but,
gonna do it this
yeah.
year. You mean, you're not gonna meet their deadline.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know that we're gonna meet it regardless.
And that's for the full council to decide, obviously. So I guess my question, based on where we're at now in this discussion, is do you want to bring it back next week to have this discussion, or would you like to wait till the second meeting in a month? Scott's told me he could make that meeting.
The second
you
one?
can meet,
You can make the second one? I'll be there too.
So that would be June 17th, I think it is. So, yeah, that's the 17th. That'll give Leighton an opportunity to listen to the meeting too.
and June 5th is the first Meet Me Under the Oak, so if we could get something out,
June 3rd,
or June 3rd.
night of the council.
It is the 3rd.
Yeah.
I knew it was the first.
anything else? Okay, nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Well, could we, I guess I'd like a little bit of a consensus of what,
Oh,
or direction for staff here, myself, where would you like to do
Second.
here?
Bring
Want-
it back at
To
the
bring it
second
back
at the
meeting.
second
Second meeting, okay, pardon me.
I thought we'd
Okay.
already.
Okay,
Sorry.
pardon me.
Do you need anything else from us?
No, that's it, thank you.
Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Padilla, seconded by Kufal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are your extra copies, Tony, and this was something Logan handed out.
Oh, all right.